Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everybody can hear me properly. Sarah Cook, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the Medicine Hat and District Chamber, our Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome you all to our Leadership Luncheon. I'm Marcus Campbell, Vice President of the Chamber. A little different format today, so we're going to try our best to make this entertaining. Zoom housekeeping, I'm sure everybody's familiar with Zoom. A few features: make sure that you've joined with your computer audio. If your audio is not working, find the microphone icon located in the bottom left-hand corner and click on the arrow to see your audio options. We have all participants muted during the meeting unless the host unmutes your microphone. You can also turn your video on or off using the video icon in the bottom left-hand corner. This will also allow you to choose a virtual background or select your video settings. At the bottom of your screen, you should be able to view participants by clicking on the participants icon. You can also submit any questions through the chat feature by clicking on the chat icon. You can share your reactions either with a thumbs up or clapping using the reactions icon. And we ask, instead of raising your hand, that you do post your questions in the chat box so that we can moderate the chat dialogue. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you change your name to your first and last name or company name so that it's easier for our team to take registration. You can do this by clicking on participants, find your name, and when you scroll over your name, you should see an option that says more. If you click on that, you can choose to rename your profile. That's a lot of stuff for Zoom housekeeping. You can change your view settings as well by clicking on the view options at the top of your screen, and we suggest using the side-by-side viewing option. And if you have any technical difficulties, please email accounts@medicinehatchamber.com. All right, the Chamber is proud to represent the most unified, valued, and influential network in the Medicine Hat area, representing over 850 businesses and organizations. That number keeps growing, by the way. And we are committed to providing the connection, support, and influence to assist our members' success as we continually work to address the concerns of our business community and provide the support necessary to strengthen our economy. This past year has been a challenging one, and I can speak for myself, as I'm sure for many others, it's been a little overwhelming at times. As an organization, we have been inspired by the resiliency shown by our business community, our city, ourselves, and we've done a great job of readjusting to the process to support our community as effectively as possible. While some things have changed, our commitment to our mission and region has remained steadfast. Having conversations with leaders in our region is more critical now than ever. And before, as it will take a collective effort to ensure that our region recovers economically and finds opportunities for prosperity built on innovation and forward-thinking strategies. At this time, I would like to introduce your federal, provincial, municipal, and county representatives that will be addressing you today. MP for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner, Mr. Glenn Motts. MLA for Cypress Medicine Hat, Mr. Drew Barnes. Mayor for the City of Medicine Hat, His Worship Mayor Ted Cluxton. Reeve for Cypress County, Mr. Dan Hamilton. And Lieutenant Colonel Troy Leafso, Base Commander, CFB Suffield. Michaela Glasgow, MLA, had a scheduling conflict, so she's not here in person. And Mayor Dwight Kilpatrick from the town of Redcliffe is also unable to attend today. Now we're going to make note of the dignitaries in attendance today. So from the wonderful City of Medicine Hat, we have Councillor Darren Hirsch and Chris Samaraj. From our Medicine Hat and District Chamber of Commerce directors, we've got Tracy Newlett, our president, Sarah Cook, Steve Pudwell, Second Vice President Scott Lair, Sarah Franchetto, Steve Hyde, and I believe I saw Trevor Anhel in there somewhere. So welcome to everybody. So right now, I did that. That was supposed to take me 10 minutes and I did it in 5. So we're ahead of schedule. Presentations. Each representative will have 5 minutes to provide remarks about their actions and priorities. Following all presentations, we will open up the floor for a Q&A period. So please start thinking about your questions now and remember to submit them via the Q&A function with Zoom. And we are going to get things rolling right away. I think Lisa's going to come in and moderate the Q&A. So to start things off, I'm going to hand things over to Mr. Glenn Motz.
Thank you very much, Marcus. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. I also want to acknowledge MLA Barnes, His Worship Mayor Clugston, as well as Reeve Hamilton, Lieutenant Colonel Lefso, as well as our Chamber President, Tracy. Business leaders, ladies and gentlemen, as business goes in Canada, so goes our economy. When small business and medium-sized companies who make up half of all jobs start to fail, the domino effect is significant. The debate in Ottawa for the last 8 months has not been about whether to spend, but where, how much, how quickly, and how to do so efficiently. In opposition, the role is to find the issues and pressure the government to address them in a crisis. As we all know, there are many problems all at once, and the noise of questions and recommendations and demands sometimes blur things from the outside. There have been many MPs from across all parties bringing the same issues to light, and methods and media may be different, but the challenges our community faces are shared by all communities across this country. Canada is not okay, but it certainly can be. I won't get into what I saw as a slow and underwhelming response to COVID, but before the pandemic, we had unaddressed issues like poverty, rising crime, drug addiction, and ideological new laws that have hurt and are hurting us in Western Canada. We had increased obstacles to home ownership, higher youth unemployment, and half of Canadians reported to be close to financial trouble. With that weakened foundation, COVID has hit us hard. Industries like agriculture, energy, construction, and forestry that sustained us through the 2008 crisis were already decimated or hurting. And our lack of manufacturing capacity left us at the mercy of China, a merciless communist regime, as we all know. Politicians have been listening, but Ottawa has been too slow to react. Since September, we brought daily pressure and attention to the lack of rapid testing. Testing that can mean sending children to school with peace of mind or restoring business practices to more normalized operations. Improved border screening, and we can go on and on. Now, on October 2nd, thankfully, the first rapid tests were approved, and millions of shipments have started arriving. Now, thousands of small businesses across the country who have sustained our economy, as I said earlier, are all in precarious positions. If we lose these businesses, we lose our economy. Well, some received quick support, others are still left and have been left unprotected and unsupported. Calls for changes to fix programs have finally begun to roll out. For example, the rent relief program was a disaster. It was quickly promised, slow to roll out, inappropriately focused, and left many unable to receive the support they required. The program expired last month, and like the emergency response benefit, expired without a successor in place. And the promised successor program, which we have called Bill C9, was first introduced last week, Monday, in the House. Chambers of commerce and small business groups across the country have been seeking improvements to the programs that exist. The Conservative motion, supported by all opposition parties last week, passed in the House despite Liberals being opposed to it. And that motion ended the Liberals' planned CRA audit of every wage subsidy during this crisis to date. Surely this is not the time for a witch hunt. The motion also supports calls for business groups like the Chamber to restore, the motion also calls for, supports the calls from business leaders and business groups like the Chamber to restore the wage subsidy and improve the current rent subsidy program. Companies, especially in hospitality, tourism, and travel, have seen significant losses, and we know that many employers, workers, continue to need support. We've learned over the last 5 years that ideological tinkering with jobs in our economy will not help our long-term growth. There is no green energy sector without our current resource sector. I hope we have also learned that oppression or ignoring the needs of any Canadians harms all Canadians. Whether it's mental health, poverty, or addiction, the cost of inaction is always greater than action. A government acting for the common good builds up all communities, families, workers, and employers. It does not have to be an either-or situation. We cannot measure policies on stock prices and Bay Street judgment alone, but we need to understand the impacts on Main Street. The common good needs to be our mission, the good of your companies, the good of your employees, the good of our neighborhoods, the good of our families. Then it'll take the community, the entire community, the community of business leaders on this call, the community of our great city of Medicine Hat, the community of Alberta, and the community of a strong and united Canada. It's up to all of us, the leaders on this call and all of your employees, to recommit and dedicate ourselves to this country. In the short term, my priority has and continues to be the critical jobs that sustain communities across the riding of Medicine Hat, Cardston, and Warner. I want to close by thanking the Chamber for putting on these events and for your outstanding efforts throughout this crisis to help support you, the business community, and your companies. And it has been, you've done a great job, Chamber. Thank you. I also want to thank you, the business owners in this community, for pushing forward and working to try and keep your businesses and your operating and your workers working. I will keep fighting for Canada and for the government our community deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. And now, next we'll hear from MLA Drew Barnes, MLA for Cypress, Medicine Hat.
Thank you, Marcus. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great, good. So first of all, thanks to everybody for being involved, and thanks to Glenn Motz for his comments. I want to start with what the Alberta government has done. Our commitment, our reduction of the corporate tax to 8% will go a long way to build and attract investment into all parts of Alberta. We've already seen some companies reaching out to take advantage of this, and with the right reduction of regulation and bureaucracy, with the right business environment, this will go a long way to ensure that Alberta attracts a lot of capital and a lot of investment. Secondly, I for one believe strongly that Alberta needs to get back to our 10% flat tax for individuals. Many Albertans, many Canadians used to declare Alberta or live in Alberta just because of the lower tax rates that Alberta offered compared to other provinces. Of course, since the middle of the NDP term and now the 18 months of the UCP, this advantage has been lost. Estimates are it's costing us in the billions of dollars. People that are not living in Alberta and claiming Alberta as their December 31st tax jurisdiction. Post-COVID, as we probably move to more of a situation where you can work from home or you can work remotely, that competitive tax advantage may go a long way. And I, for one, have always talked about bringing back provincial government spending in line so we can get back to that lower flat tax to attract brain power, capital, investments, those kind of things. It's a bit more than that. It's also about creating the playing field and the rules where businesses and individuals can prosper. When I was first elected in 2012, one of the biggest reasons that 17 Wild Rose MLAs were elected, mostly in rural Alberta, were because of the PC government at the time had draconianly attacked property rights, putting in Bill 36, allowing them, if they were doing a regional plan, or even when they initially started, although they did change it, they had the ability to take somebody's property title never mind the caveats that are attached to the title of a land, like a water license, an intensive feedlot, those kind of things, to basically take the benefits of that title without full and fair compensation and without access to courts for appeal. Experts at the time called it the most draconian bill they'd seen in the Westminster system. My private member's bill on the floor of the House right now is to enhance property rights for all Albertans, for companies, for landowners, even for workers, and for people that have intellectual property. People to know that their hard work, their efforts, their ideas have some financial protection. I'm with great anticipation, hoping that will go to the floor next week or the week after, and again show all investors, all Canadians, that that Alberta is a place where you can work hard, where you can share your proceeds of your work, and you can protect what you've done. I also am pleased that our government, and I think the number was 800 million, they put that money into long-term irrigation projects. I know some of it is going to go to our St. Mary's program and is going to help that happen. Of course, the example I always think of is potatoes even are being grown right past 7 persons now as the irrigation starts to spread eastward and we start to do more. So I'm pleased that you know, like the two, you know, the 3 stalwarts of development in Alberta, of course, have been oil and gas, agriculture, and forestry. And the more we can do for that, the better. So I'm pleased that some money has gone into something that will provide some long-term value. Having said that, though, there's another project at Acadia Valley, not too far north of us, that looks like it has great potential. I am pushing the levers where I can to make sure that that one gets looked at. And I've even put the idea of the Meridian Dam back on the forefront to be looked at. Lots of pros and cons there for sure, but we should be looking at it. And of course, the government of Saskatchewan just announced it was in the billions to more irrigation projects out of Lake Diefenbaker, just across the Alberta-Saskatchewan border, very, very close to us. Medicine Hat's in a great spot. We are such a great community. We're, from our weather, our people, our safety, and I think post-COVID, and I think even during COVID, we're seeing a lot of people picking Medicine Hat because of the quality of life. And I just think that what the Alberta government needs to do is enhance those opportunities so businesses, so individuals, so families will choose Alberta over other provinces. And in my opinion, there's no better spot in Alberta than Medicine Hat. And that's why I like the overall picture of lower taxes, government that is more focused on property rights, individuals, free enterprise, and some commercial opportunities. So with that, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Drew. Appreciate that. Now we move on to His Worship, Mayor Ted Clugston.
I'm hoping you can hear me. Okay. So good afternoon, and thanks to all the presenters today, and thank you for joining us. And I'm sorry I'm going to talk about COVID, but I know we're all fatigued and frankly mentally exhausted about COVID, but it has defined our year. And so I have to speak about it. But I really can't say enough about the residents of Medicine Hat and area, and really what we've accomplished compared to the rest of the province and even the country is absolutely phenomenal. And it came without draconian measures. Drew was using the word draconian a few times, and I am as well. And right now, you know, I'm extremely proud to be the mayor of the city and in this council. I've even started doing some national interviews. People are interested in Medicine Hat and what we are doing differently, and why are we having lower COVID numbers than some of the rest of the provinces and the municipalities in Alberta. And the only thing I can say is that I don't know why, but I have very responsible citizens, and I put the onus on the citizens, the residents, because really, frankly, in my opinion, your government can't save you from a virus. Only you can save yourself. And so we're just thankfully and very frank, I'm just thrilled with how we so far how we're managing this. And I think for the first time in the last week or so, I could see a light at the end of this tunnel. And there were times when I felt the weight of this and I wasn't sure that we were going to make it through, but I can see the light now. And the pressure that has been placed upon myself and City Council has been enormous from both sides. You know, from day one, where there were demands to declare a local state of emergency, and you saw the rest of the province, most of the municipalities declared a local state of emergency, and that was frankly foolish and had absolutely no point, because a pandemic is not a local emergency, it's a worldwide emergency. But we resisted that pressure as a council, and we were proven correct in the end, and all the other municipalities ended up rescinding their states of local emergency. And so I've been saying all through this pandemic, you know, time will be our judge. If we're wrong, we will be held accountable, and if we're correct, probably no one will ever say anything. But I do believe our stoic and steady as approach goes is going to win the day. And the balance between health, and you're hearing the Premier say this, and mental health and economic vibrancy has been a very, very difficult tightrope to walk. And frankly, as we all know, as residents of Medicine Hat, that mental health has become far more deadly disease in Medicine Hat than COVID. You know, it's been nice, frankly, I'm gonna make a little joke, but it's been nice that we had this snowfall, because my emails have now changed from mask versus no mask bylaw to when are you gonna come clean my streets? So it's been a nice change. But having talked about the negatives of COVID or some of the positives, I'm gonna focus on some of the things to look forward to. We have hopefully going to receive $20 million from both the province and the federal government. So thank you to both parties there. And it will be a welcome economic boost for our economy. And that is what it was intended for. But the list of projects is long, and I really can't thank my staff or my council enough for the courage and expediency with which these projects were conceived and decided upon. It was very difficult. And so just a quick list. We're looking at new pickleball courts, we're looking at downtown waterfront investment, we're looking at athletic park improvements, we're looking at trail improvements and new trails, amalgamation of some city office space so we can decrease our lease payments. We're looking at water treatment plant upgrades at Echodale, campground expansions, and many, many more projects. So I want to be very clear that we are thrilled to be receiving the stimulus, but the timelines and the criteria were very strict and short. So one of the criteria was that we couldn't increase operating costs of the cities, and the projects couldn't already be in planning. So I'm often asked on the radio shows and on the street, why didn't you build a pool in the south? Simple answer, increased operating costs. That was forbidden. Why not a water park in Riverside? Increased operating costs. Why not a pedestrian bridge across connecting Police Point Park to Strathcona Park? Timeline. There was absolutely no way we could have finished a project like that by December 31st of next year. So I'm asking everybody who's listening today if you could please be ambassadors, because a lot of people are asking me those questions, and just say operating costs or timelines. And these have also been very difficult times at City Hall, and council and administration are making bold and brave decisions as well. It used to be that you got a job with the city of Medicine Hat and you were guaranteed employment for 30 or 40 years, and there were never layoffs. And unfortunately, things have changed around here, and we're trying to cut our labor force. We've laid off probably almost 100 people in natural gas and petroleum resources over the last couple, 3 years, and now we're asking for between 50 and 100 more voluntary early retirements. And so things are a little tough around here. But the reason why we're doing this is so that we're not so heavily reliant upon our unreliable commodity income, and to maintain low taxes, frankly. And our goal is, I think, as a city council, is to emerge from this pandemic as one of the lowest cost bases in the country and in the province, and to emerge stronger and more competitive than basically any other municipality. So tough choices, but hopefully it will help in the end. And so I'm hoping that many of you can come to the State of the City. You've always supported that very well, and I will try to talk about a little bit more of these things in more detail and have more fleshed out. And so on behalf of myself and the rest of City Council, we'll get through this, and all the best.
Thank you, Ted. Appreciate it. Next, we move on to Reeve Dan Hamilton, Cypress County.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for your invitation. It's been a busy year and an eye-opening year. We faced some challenges, of course, with COVID, and the recent snowstorm was no walk in the park either. Cypress County is resilient, though. It was a busy year for the county in the way of collaboration agreements. As the agreements with the city and the town was well known, there were additional 4 other agreements that were completed with adjacent municipalities. One of the biggest challenges we faced this year was an assessment model review. The original 4 scenarios that were put forward by the province were worrying prospects for the county. However, the province paused those processes in favor of new support for oil and gas. We're very grateful to Minister Allard and her team for listening to the rural municipalities and coming with a compromise. At the municipal level, the county is investing in our infrastructure, such as upgrading 18.7 kilometers of Trip Road 120 that supports transportation model for the region. Roughly 10 years ago, the 120 seen about 400 vehicles a day. It's now skyrocketed to 2,000 vehicles a day, 500% increase across that road. In addition, Range Road 11 to the Empress gas plant will be rehabilitated to support the local gas production industry. As some of you may know and see, we are very active advocating for the funding for HALO, Air Ambulance. During the RMA conference, Minister Forum, we asked for an update from Minister Chandro on the HEMS review. His reply was that the review was insufficient. I have emailed Minister Chandro twice since and asked for a copy of the review, and yet I haven't heard a response. HALO is a vital service, and we will continue to fight for it for everyone in our region. But on a happier note, collectively, we have accomplished so much and come so far as a region for this year, despite COVID. Through continued collaboration with our key partners, we look forward to 2021. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. And finally, we're going to wrap things up with Lieutenant Colonel Troy Leafso, Base Commander, CFB Suffield.
Good afternoon, Your Honors and MPs and MLAs. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak again this afternoon. Like many businesses and local communities, the CFB Suffield has been impacted as well by COVID-19. It's been a challenging year, and the biggest piece that we've all felt is BATIS not training here this year. It was strictly due to COVID and them being allowed to come into the country, and they were very concerned. They did not want to be a spot or a hot spot within the base and then pass it to the local community. And for the same reason, because of unknowns of COVID-19 moving forward, they have declared that they will not be training at CFB Suffield next year in the summer of 2021. They're going to be conducting their training in the UK simply because they cannot afford to lose another training year. On the good news is that DRDC, the Suffield Research Center, has been doing tremendous work strategically on behalf of all of Canada. They've been asked by Health Canada to do a number of tests or confirm a number of tests that other companies have said are supposed to work, such as testing on the wearing of masks, etc. So they continue to do great work. Oil and gas continues to do their work out on the base. But again, their impact and what they do out here is more based on what oil and gas is financially across the world than what it is locally. And we do what we can to support their access out here onto the base. We are also are supporting grazing continuing for the coming years, and we'll continue that as long as we can as we move forward in the future. The other piece is our elk hunt is ongoing. It starts as of Monday and will run for 5 weeks this year. The first is 16 to 18 November, followed by the 23rd to the 25th, and then the first 3 weeks in January or approximately thereof. So that'll be good news. It'll provide personnel or hunters from outside the area will be coming in and hopefully being able to use some of the local businesses. There are also still out at the base approximately 800 fantastic civilian jobs, and they all live within the local community. There are still approximately 200 to 250 BATIS permanent staff that are here, and they are BATIS is planning on training back at CFB Suffield in 2022. They are doing a integrated review with all their departments, and what that will be and what their impact is on the UK going forward, because just like us in Canada, their budgets have been significantly impacted, and their spending that they've done on programs similar to CERB has also impacted their bottom line. And as everybody's also tracking, they're trying to deal with Brexit, and we don't know what that impact will be long-term on them as well. As a base, we continue to try to move forward with projects. So that is continuing to move forward, as we do have the funding both on the Canadian side and British side to continue on with our general maintenance, upkeep, and repairs. So we're continuing to work on that. I also hosted the one CMBG, one Canadian Mechanized Brigade Ward Cabinet, and touted CFB Suffield as a great opportunity next year to come here and train next summer, being BATIS is not going to be here as opposed to going to Wainwright. But again, those aren't my decisions. It'll be up to Commander 1 Div, 3 Div on where he decides training will be, and on Commander 1 CMBG. We did also host 408 Helicopter Squadron. They were down for a couple weeks, greatly impressed by the support they were able to get from local community. So hopefully they as well will be back in the near future. I think those are all kind of my points. My biggest priority is keeping the base operationally functioning. Just like there's a number of rules and regulations, we're impacted on the base both federally, provincially, and locally. And then we also have the Canadian Armed Forces and D&D regulations that we try to do on top of it. So we do our best to try to keep the base open. And then, but we will be, our bottom line is we'll be operationally functioning to be able to support both the main units that we have on base, the UK and DRDC, and then to be able to respond to any requests for assistance should they come up. So again, my thanks to the local community and all the businesses for all the support that you've provided to the base and our families. And I look forward to continue to work with you throughout the coming year and any questions that anybody might have later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. So I'm continually impressed by how many people tune in for these virtual events. I know we'd probably have more if we were in person, but you know, we've got close to 60 people that have tuned in today. Thank you to everybody for their presentations. Certainly appreciate everybody sticking on time. We are literally a minute ahead of schedule. So now we're going to get into the question period, and that's when I'm going to hand it over to Lisa.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Marcus. So for anybody who would like to pose a question to any of our representatives, you can certainly post that through the chat function. Just at the, if you haven't opened that up, at the bottom of your Zoom window, you should see an option for chat. And I'm going to start off with MP Glenn Motz. So Bill C9, of course, was introduced and it went through third reading. And that bill obviously is a key component in some of these additional subsidies and programs, and particularly the Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy that many people are waiting for. I believe it's now in the Senate. So when can we expect that to come into effect, and when will people be able to start applying for those additional supports?
Thank you very much, Lisa. Yes, the bill was introduced on last week, Monday. It's currently in the Senate. Last week, Friday, it was moved through the House. And I suspect, given how the Senate is working right now to try to accommodate these sort of bills for the Canadian business community, that we should hopefully see it this week. I think they're sitting this week, the Senate is. And so I'm hopeful that we'll see it soon. The rollout is another question. I suspect, and I'd have to check, Lisa, I believe the application process is probably online already, and if not, it will be in the coming days.
Perfect, thank you. I'll move to MLA Drew Barnes. So Drew, you had mentioned obviously a lot of the benefits with the Alberta tax environment. What other provincial supports do you believe need to be adjusted or created to stimulate economic recovery and investment in our region? And I think I'll tie in industrial zone development, because I know that's also on the provincial government's radar, and how does that play in for businesses and industries in our region?
Okay, great. Thank you for that question. Industrial zones are critically necessary as well, as long as it's local decision making, and as long as all Albertans, and I'll say especially outside of the metros, have an opportunity to be involved. You know, I see a lot of pushback about the Calgary Regional Planning Board and how that is tied the hands of communities around Calgary. I see time and time, you know, Calgary and Edmonton are crucially important, but you know, they take a lot of the infrastructure money, the LRT money, those kind of things to those areas. So I think one of the things that the province of Alberta has to work on is a more balanced approach between the two big metros and the rest of us. So I'd like to see some concentration on that. Secondly, red tape reduction. It's great to sit here and come up with, you know, more rules or try to eliminate a whole bunch of rules to reduce red tape. But really, at the end of the day, unless we streamline some of these budgets, the red tape isn't going to go away. As long as the size and those kind of things are left intact. You know, Lisa, and I've heard it twice last week, 3 years to get a lease quarter transferred from buyer to seller, or from parents to son or daughter. You know, that kind of action doesn't attract business. That doesn't convey confidence. So I would hope that our government can focus on those things, and I'd also hope that our governments can just get out of the way. Let's trust the Chamber of Commerce. Let's trust free enterprise. Let's trust communities to develop the way that Mayor Clugston talked about how we've protected down here, how we've been so good for COVID. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for your response. I'm going to move over to Mayor Clugston. Obviously, the big grant was very well received. Lots of uptake once it started to roll out, and people were a little bit more comfortable that it was a grant and not just a loan, and knew what it could be used for. The city was also great at, you know, making adjustments to the program so it could capture more of the needs of business. Now I know that all 3 tranches were fully utilized, and so moving forward, what do you see that 4th tranche looking like for that grant? And do you have any teasers for us, or any other, you know, supports that businesses can look forward to, and when will that be released?
So thank you, Lisa, and I thank you for that compliment. We're very proud here of the big grant because it was so well received. You are absolutely correct. It was exponential after people realized it wasn't a loan or it had to be paid back in some fashion, and we paused it to look back and say, well, okay, is there anything we missed? And right now, to tell you the truth, it's in Invest Medicine Hat's hands to tweak it and perhaps maybe expand it or contract it and make it more targeted. But other than that, I don't have anything for you. Usually I do. I can say that, of course, as part of all that, we did hold property taxes at the 2019 level at 0%. We also did put $1 million approximately into the community warmth so that, you know, people struggling with their utility bills, and also give people time, 12 to pay back outstanding balances. So we really tried. I do believe as a municipality on a per capita basis, we've probably done more than any other. in the country. I could be proven wrong, but I don't think I will be. And that next $500,000 tranche will come out early in January, as far as I know.
You're saving all the good stuff for State of the City, aren't you?
I am. I have an hour there instead of just 5 minutes.
Well, that will entice more people to come and register for State of the City, right?
Thank you.
Thanks for that. So for Reeve Dan Hamilton, what kind of municipal supports is Cypress County looking at? And perhaps, so what are the county's plans for support and recovery and economic growth within the region moving forward?
Thank you for that question, Lisa. Cypress County is very happy to have the lower taxes in this area so we can help everybody get back on track and get going. And we're always open for business. We always look at everything that can be done and brought up. And we don't have a lot of red tape here. We get things done as quickly as it's brought in and as fast as we can get it in the MPC. If it's something that can be dealt with without going to MPC, the girls are very fast tracking it and getting up and going. We support all the business that comes into the county.
Excellent. So just a broad reaching, give us a call and we'll make it happen.
Pretty much, that's what we try to do, yes.
Great, thank you, Dan. And I'm gonna turn over to Lieutenant Colonel Troy Leifso. And I apologize, Troy, I always wonder if I'm pronouncing that correctly, if it's Leifso or Lefso.
It's Leifso, but that's okay.
Leifso, thank you. See, and now everybody is aware, so nobody will pronounce your name incorrectly in the future. Obviously, we recognize and appreciate the significant contribution that CFB Suffield provides to our local economy. You have been such an economic stabilizer, and when we talk about diversification, we have the benefit of being able to talk about the base as part of our economic viability and stability. So how has the pandemic affected base operations? Obviously, it impacts training. And what does that mean for our greater region? And I'll tag on a secondary portion of that. Drew Barnes also had a question in terms of, can the base be used by other Commonwealth and allied countries for training at the same time as the British Army trains? So maybe if you can answer both those in the same vein, that would be great.
So the impact that we had originally is, like a lot of places in March, we were told to go to minimum manning or essential services only. For the base proper, though, that means that most of our functions keep going. So where it did impact was DRDC and BATIS, because they're not, though we support them, our base always needs to be operational because we need to support if a request for assistance for flooding came in from the local area, Cypress County, or for within Medicine Hat, we need to be able to prepare to support whatever unit from outside the area comes in. So really, very much similar to what Medicine Hat, the city it was, we need to keep the water running, the utilities running, keep our buildings functioning. So that was the big focus. Where we're impacted is we get hit by several different layers of regulations we need to follow. So Cypress County puts in a regulation for COVID, or the province does, or the federal government does. We need to react to be able to react to all of them. And then on top of that, we might be limited on the military side of rules that we have to follow, such as needing to shut down our gym, things like that. But because of where we are, we've also been very lucky in that we're somewhat semi-isolated. We're a little community out here. So we were able to keep a lot of our things open, whereas in other areas they could not. And answering the Honorable Mr. Barnes' question, absolutely other NATO and Commonwealth countries could train here. The US has certainly come up and trained. NATO has sent smaller groups here, and it's actually under DRDC and some of the training that they do. We've had Belgian, Germans, Polish, trying to think of all the other NATO countries, Spain, Italy, the Netherlands, Germany, I think I already said them, but they all come over and they train at the world-class training facility at DRDC and the chemical, biological, and radiological training and their expertise here. So there's no reason other NATO countries couldn't come here and train. It's just simply them coming in and asking through the Canadian Armed Forces process to be able to do it. And then through the federal government for them to allow it. And really that's through the Minister of National Defense to be able to have that, that route in. But certainly it's very easy. It's more easy for NATO countries and for the US to come up here and train, and they've done it in the past.
Excellent, thank you so much. I'm going to go back to MP Motz. And I have to say, all of you guys are absolutely stellar in terms of keeping with time. It allows us to ask a few more questions. So thank you so much for keeping within the time limits on the presentations. So MP Motz, there's obviously been some challenges with interprovincial trade and that hampering our ability within Canada. So what can we do to reduce interprovincial trade barriers? And secondary to that is, do you have any updates on the Trans Mountain Pipeline?
Thank you very much, Lisa, and thank you, Drew, for the questions. First of all, as we all know, having interprovincial trade barriers has incredibly stymied the Canadian economy. Like it's silliness on some of the rules that exist there. There's been numerous conversations within our caucus, and we have been pushing the government to commit to what they promised they would do, you know, and there's been lots of promises to get elected, but you know, short sometimes on following through. But to start playing out, even if we do industry by industry and open up that whole concept that that is, you know, hindering our business community, our workers from being able to travel from province to province to do certain types of work, and it certainly will make a difference. We need to, I think, from a chamber perspective, Lisa and Marcus and group, continue to put pressure on the governments of the day, both provincially and federally, on the importance. You know, there's all sorts of different business groups out there that can have done the research on the economic impacts positively for our consumers as well as for businesses to allow interprovincial trade. It's been pushed a lot at our level for the wine industry. I know you know that's one way to get it growing, and so we'll stay tuned. It's certainly some of our critics on that portfolio are pushing internally within our caucus to push the current government officials here to make that happen. With respect to the Trans Mountain Pipeline, things are progressing. We know it's about 86. The route is about 86% approved so far, and the other 14% that's remaining is in the process of conversation and discussion on the best route to take. They're currently burrowing through Burnaby Mountain. They anticipate that'll take approximately 2 years to go through that. I don't know when, and I haven't heard recently when it is anticipated that the entire project will be done, but I think it'll be a number of years yet, 3 or 4 years anyway before that is completely finished. That's kind of the updated. We know, and I won't get into the politics of it, but it is definitely over budget.
Thank you for that. MLA Drew Barnes, I alluded to this in my last question with regards to industrial zones, but Darren Hirsch has posed a question in the chat, further expanding on that. Obviously, we have been identified as a petrochemical hub in one of the industrial zones within the province, and that was done by the previous NDP government. Can we get an update with what the efforts of the UCP are doing with regards to diversifying the economy in that fashion? And what efforts are you making on our behalf for the region? And I can probably speak to this a little bit because I just sent a letter which I copied you on, MLA Barnes, to the Minister of Environment, who is handling the file now, as well as Municipal Affairs. So be curious to hear any updates from you on that. Oh, and you might be frozen. Oh, I think we may have just lost MLA Barnes. So I'm going to, while we
Question may have
wait
been a
for,
little tough for him, Lisa.
yeah, I'll maybe hop over to Mayor Clugston. And can you give us a little bit more insight into the accelerated financially fit? I did see Dennis Egert on the call as well. So certainly if you want to defer to him, we certainly will open up that opportunity.
I was just going to say, ask Dennis, but basically, in a nutshell, Financially Fit was started back in about 2014, and by the council of the day and the previous administration of the day, our previous CAO and finance, Marita Hageland and Brian Mastel. And it was bold and it was well done. And you've all well known, you've seen the pictures of the levers that we can pull, via, increased costs for recreation, raising taxes and municipal consent and access fee, all the different things that we could pull on levers. But what happened, I think, is that we kind of dropped the ball a little bit and lacked in execution. And so what we've done now is we've said, well, we need to get back on track to the original plan. And by that means we have to accelerate. So when I say accelerate, I don't really know if we're saying we're going to catch up for what we should have done in the last 3 or 4 years, or we're just saying we're going to move more quickly going forward, but accelerate. So as I mentioned in my opening remarks about layoffs with the City of Medicine Hat, not fun. We've already had some good people leave the organization, people that were working very, very hard and doing a great job. And now people are putting in their applications for early retirement as well. And so that, as everybody knows, labor is our biggest cost. And so if we can pare that down, that will go towards the bottom line. But we're just looking at all types of user fees as well. I think one of the big ones, we call it the Holy Grail here. I don't know if we should be calling it that or not, but whereby we can increase service and decrease cost. I mean, if you can find a way to do that, you're winning. And I think a perfect example of that is the new transit. When you look at the transit in the northeast and northwest of Medicine Hat, we basically an Uber type transit, or if you want to call it, it's dial a ride. It was the old name for it. But anyway, I think people have tried it out. It works. It's efficient. It's actually in some ways, and it's better in some ways than the old transit, because you can basically be in Parkview and get a bus to go to the leisure center. And you didn't used to be able to do that. You'd have to come downtown to the hub and then get another bus up to the northwest. So perfect example, and staff have been tasked with coming up with more ideas like that. And then it comes to council, frankly, to have the courage to implement them. And these can be tough. Some of these are tough decisions. And of course, when we affect a user group, we hear about it, and they're local, and we know those people very well who are saying, please stop, or please don't cut our program. But we are accelerating and moving forward.
Great. I see you got nods from Commissioner Egert, so you must have done a great job in covering
what about
that.
Councillor Hirsch and Somrush?
Excellent. I see MLA Barnes, you were able to loop back in and join us once again. So I'll maybe go back to you for your response to that question. And again, just as a refresher, it had to do with the petrochemical hub and what specifically the UCP government is doing to diversify the economy in that fashion, and your efforts on advocating on behalf of our region.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, for some reason I was kicked out for a minute or two, but able to get back in. Well, first of all, we've put back in all of the NDP incentives to attract petrochemicals to the area. Again, in my earlier remarks, I mentioned how the 8% corporate tax, of course, on top of the 15% federal tax, but 8% is the lowest in Canada. That will go a long way to attract investment for our area over time. But Lisa and everyone, I think we got to look at where we're at. The NDP had this policy in for 3 years. We're back to about 6 months now. So for 3.5 years, I've been talking to the Methanex people, the Canadian Fertilized people, all kinds of conversations going on. But where's the building? Where's this happened? And I think we have to look at our overall competitiveness. You know, you build a plant in Canada, you're paying 2 levels of carbon tax. There's only 9 American states that have a carbon tax. So there's many American states that are right off the bat are more competitive than us. You know, secondly, you look at things in the you know, we got to ask ourselves, and MP Motts alluded to it in one of his answers, about how so much of our manufacturing, our engineering, our development has been lost to China over the years. I think you have to look back at, we had historically low natural gas prices here now for what, 8 or 10 years. And I think we have to look back now at the bottlenecks as to why more of that natural gas wasn't converted into cheap electricity to make pharmaceuticals, to printing, 3D printing, to all those things that we could have added. What are the bottlenecks that make that happen? You know, I'll come to the sage grouse protection order in the south. You know, right now, the province has come up with some kind of agreement with the feds and the Species at Risk Act for caribou in the north. I have no idea what the elements of that are going to be and how much that's going to hinder business. But look at what that did to our oil and gas south of our city. At the same time, federal government in power right now is starting to adopt wanting 25% of all the land protected, you know, for you know, whatever that means. When the prior commitment was 17%, Alberta, with our parks and stuff, approximately had that, whether with Banff and Jasper. Now that they've updated it to, you know, to a higher goal, what is that going to mean for agriculture, irrigation, oil and gas, forestry? There's many of these challenges that we have to work out with our federal government and with our provincial partners. And I would think to a certain extent, there's so much opportunity if we can get it right. Prior to COVID, the world demand for oil and gas was growing. Suffield Base has shown how all levels of government and cooperation can work together to make things happen. It's just a matter of us pushing to make those things happen. So again, let's look at why, with the NDP having these things in for 3 years, it didn't attract anything down here. And let's look at doing what we need to do to make it happen. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to go to Lieutenant Colonel Lifeso. And a question for you, more of a general question, I guess, is what can we do either as elected representatives or, you know, support organizations or as businesses to support CFB Suffield, or, you know, whether through connections, support, procurement, or advocacy on behalf of our base? Is there anything that we can be doing to further support your efforts in making sure that the base continues to be sustainable and successful moving forward?
Great question. One of the pieces, and it was mentioned, it was the provincial barriers. So when Canadian military families move from province to province, it's often the spouses that when they're looking for work, it's their credentials. They have to either redo it or take a test or prove that the credentials that they had in another province are now applicable in the new province. It's getting doctors and specialists for the kids and the family. It's even simple things like moving your license plates and having to redo that and all your insurance and things like that. So I know that there are projects in place that they're looking at, but certainly the mobility of, and it's not just for the military, that mobility of moving Canadian families across the country, if there was an easier way to do it, that would be a huge benefit. Otherwise, the support for local community has been fantastic. We really haven't had any issues. if there are issues, it's more within our own regulations, whether it be procurement, things like contracting. But those rules and regulations are all put in place to make sure that we're transparent in what we're enacting. And really on the British side, them coming in, the province of Alberta has been fantastic in allowing them and finding ways for them to go out of the country, come back in, or get people in, and saying, are you only going to the base? Well, yes. And then us putting in, I want to say, local regulations on the base to make sure that if they are coming, they're not going out in the local community, and we can support them. So that's made a big difference of us being able, at least within the COVID-19 perspective, of us being able to keep things moving on the base. So there's nothing really specific. It's all kind of within our own regulations that we have to. But for the family side, if we can get more mobility across Canada and decrease the regulations of improving what people have, because I think we all, within Canada, I think we can all assume that someone that's trained at a university and has that regulation is in it, either in an education or in a healthcare, and they're doing it in another province, they probably are able and capable of doing it within this province as well.
Excellent, thank you. And I think MP Glenn Mott's heard that loud and clear. I'm actually going to go over to the question by Ruby Bridges that she posted in the chat. And the question ties in quite nicely, and particularly given that we've all just recognized Remembrance Day and the amazing work of our veterans. So what is each level of government doing to support veteran entrepreneurs, especially those trying to have their businesses survive and thrive in these trying times?
Thank you, Lisa. Ruby, hello. We've chatted in the past. Nice to hear from you again. I think it's important, and first of all, thank you for your service as well. I think it's important to recognize that during this time, many businesses are experiencing the challenges of COVID and the impact it has on their ability to provide a service or continue on their business and just survive, just be in survival mode. So I think our focus as a federal government must be sustaining small business to enable them to employ their employees and keep our economy running. That's number one. I don't know if there's anything specific. I think from a broader perspective, we have been irresponsible. It would be a great way to describe how response to veterans and veteran supports, not just for business, but veteran supports for them to benefits and supports that they require have been less than ideal. And having the wait times that exist right now, and I know that's not an entrepreneurial side of things, but having them wait for the periods of time that they have to in order to get the services that they are entitled to and required to have is inappropriate and actually an embarrassment. So that's from a federal government. I think all entrepreneurs have opportunity, and if you specifically are challenged with something with your consulting business, Ruby, as we've chatted, and any other businesses online, I would be more than happy to have myself and my staff walk through how we might be able to support you and your businesses differently if you're getting some stonewalling from certain departments that need to be there to help you through it. So thank you so very much.
Great, thank you for fielding that question, Glenn. And MP Motts has also put his contact information in the chat for anybody on the call. So thank you as well for that. And certainly we encourage any of our speakers, if you want individuals to be able to reach out to you personally, feel free to post that contact information in there. Next question I'll pose to MLA Barnes. So obviously we know that there's a couple of different tracing apps. So we have the AB Trace Together and of course the COVID-19 federal app, and this might be a joint question for both MP Motts and MLA Barnes. But is there any indication of when those will be melded together, or when there will just be one app, or what the plans are. It seems like the provinces have been announcing those kind of in sequence, moving across to the prairies. And I'm just wondering if there's any updates on that.
Well, thank you, Lisa, and thanks for that question. Timely, there will be an update this afternoon. There's a call starting in a few minutes from Premier and the Cabinet as to what they want to do going forward. So I expect to hear more on that. You know, again, it's been a tough 8 months, and there's some time to go. And I really appreciate what Mayor Clugston said about the business concerns, the mental health aspects, all these other things. And I, you know, think it's important that you know, that the values that Southeastern Alberta has always shown of, you know, helping each other, self-reliance, and protecting ourselves and protecting our families will go a long way. Thank you.
Sorry, Lisa, if I can just add in there, I know that you know, Alberta has, for various reasons, rejected the federal app, and then has done their own, which is, you know, certainly the purview of the province to do that. I'm not aware of the feds wanting to change their app anytime soon. And the uptake has been slow, I think, would be a good way to describe it. Not a whole lot of Canadians have confidence in the app or how it's going to work, or some of the privacy issues that may be attached to that have not been worked through properly.
Excellent, thank you. Next question I'm actually going to pose to Lieutenant Colonel Lifeso. I've had the advantage of getting communications on this question, so I think it's good information to communicate so that we can dispel any myths that are out there. This one's from Colin Gallant. So we've heard from residents about larger than usual armor movement from the base. And obviously there's some perceptions that might be related to Battis, but I know you have some great information on this to share if you want to provide the clarification.
Sure. So there was greater movement this year, and there was two reasons for that. One, over time, there's just been a gradual buildup of additional vehicles that Battis no longer needs or uses here. So part of the equipment that they sent back was surplus, and it didn't work, and the British government, or the UK, is divesting that equipment anyways, and so they want it back to the UK to divest it. The second piece is that, yes, the British did have to send greater additional armor assets back to the UK, specifically their tanks, their Challengers, and that's because they don't have a secondary training fleet back in the UK to use. So this training fleet that they have here in Battis, they needed to take portions of that, send it back to the UK so that it could be sent and used back in the training that they're doing there in the new year, because the group or the unit that was to train here in the September to October timeframe, they still need to train. They're going out the door in the new year on different deployments. And so that training, that equipment is going back to the UK for them to train on in the January, February timeframe back there. So that's the only reason, is that this is their training fleet and they needed to move it back there. And there's still approximately another 1,200 vehicles still on the base that they're going to be used. And then we expect in 2022 those vehicles to be sent back to us. Again, of course, based on, and there could be additional vehicles because they are bringing a new vehicle into their fleet, and hopefully those will come out either in 2022 or 2023.
Excellent, thank you. MP Motts, I know a lot of the supports have fallen to, come from the federal government because this is a global pandemic. So rightly so, most of the supports we see globally are more federal-based programs. And with that, of course, there's concerns in terms of longer-term deficits and debt that are resulting from that. So how do we balance the need for the necessary supports to help people survive and thrive? And what are some of those gaps that still exist that we need to address? And how do we balance that with the government spending side, making sure that, you know, it is a balanced approach to our recovery and continued support? I know that's a tough one, but has there been some discussion around that and what that looks like moving forward?
Thank you for the question, Lisa. I think I may get a little political on this particular answer because I'm going to have to be. We've had, prior to this COVID, this pandemic situation, the current government has obviously, and we've all seen it, spent the cupboards bare, as we've said, and they have spent recklessly. That would be a good way to describe it. We are printing at one point about $5 billion a week to sustain our debt, buying up Canada bonds. That is not a sustainable option for this country. But when you're in a global pandemic like this, you need to do a couple of things. As I said in my comments, Lisa, it's not a matter of whether you spend money, it's how you spend it and where you spend it and how you roll it out. And so caring for those businesses who are the lifeblood for our Canadian economy, it's absolutely critical that wage supports and rental assistance and those sort of programs are there. There's an efficient way to provide those. There was, there still is an appropriate balance to strike. Thankfully, some of the recommendations that we've done since April on, 75% wage subsidy as opposed to 10 have kept some businesses afloat. Without that, we'd have lost a lot more than we have now. CERB is a program that was very, very helpful to some people, but certainly been taken advantage of by many others. And I think a day of reckoning will happen at tax time. For one, people are failing to realize that they have to pay taxes on the CERB benefits. And there's other, the rent subsidy as well as the wage subsidy are other. That's a business issue and those business people are aware of it. But, I think from my perspective and listening to businesses in our community and from colleagues across the country, it's where you put money and how it rolls out the door. Drew talked about it. Ted talked about it. He talked about the $20 million that the city got. The 1-point-some billion for irrigation. Infrastructure money, if we're going to spend money, infrastructure has to be money that goes out the door. Not just talked about it, not just planned, but actually moving forward. Over the last year, I have asked municipalities from across the riding to get ready. Like, get your projects going, get them to the province. In March, when this pandemic hit and we saw the writing on the wall, so to speak, we went out again and said, folks, here's some opportunity. Get your projects shovel ready. That is an absolute must. And again, even the parliamentary budget officer has indicated grave concerns with how infrastructure has not rolled out in the manner in which it has. Not just during the pandemic, but pre-pandemic. So to me, it's infrastructure and the balance between borrowing to help businesses survive. We will recover, but it may take many generations for that to occur. Many generations for that to occur. I mean, we have, a $1.2 trillion deficit. We've got our debt, we've got a deficit budget this year of probably over $400 billion, which is what, a third of the country's national debt is going to be incurred in 1 year. There's only three things that can happen. You're going to have to increase taxes, and you've heard all sorts of horrible things being talked about by the Liberals on how they're going to get more money. They're going to have to cut programs. And in a more of a socialistic view of things, program cuts are never something they want to talk about, or you're going to have a combination of both. And or you're going to have to get the economy going on the industries that really help sustain the programs and supports that we've come to appreciate in this country. And as I said earlier, the ideological policies that have hurt certain regions of our country cannot continue if we want to recover from this.
Well, on that happy note, right. But let's hope that government will partner with business for a strong economic recovery, and that we can see more of that third option where we can drive this economy forward through investment and business growth. And on that note, I will turn it back over to our first Vice President, Marcus Campbell, for your final question and the wrap up.
Drew, just wondering if you could comment on the newly formed emissions reduction Alberta program and how that may help stimulate the provincial economy.
Great, Marcus. Thank you for that question. If it's done right, it will go a long way to stimulate the economy. Again, the fact that so many of our oil and gas producers are committed to getting better, are committed to paying into a fund to help help ensure that we're part of the world solution going forward. So our government will be taking this tier paid by these big companies, and we'll pinpoint them towards where it needs to go. As we all know, we're the leader here in sun when it comes to Canada. We're certainly a strong leader in wind. We're certainly a leader in wide open spaces. So we have lots of opportunity for those. But I will caution, we've got to get it right. As I mentioned in my earlier answer, there's only 9 American states with any kind of carbon tax. We have to ensure that we all work together, and we have to ensure that we have the best of all worlds. It's interesting to me to watch our big oil and gas companies try to work their way through the world situation now. Of course, we saw Cenovus and Husky merge last week. Unfortunately, about 2,500 jobs will be lost with that. But there's a big cry right now for net zero emissions. How we balance that with the realistic need for oil and gas combined with other types of energy, and the ability and the need to attract investment is one of the reasons that this cannot be left to one premier, 25 cabinet ministers, 87 MLAs. This is why all Albertans need to speak up and be part of it. So appreciate that this will be a way to ensure that we get the best of all worlds. And Marcus and everybody at the Chamber of Commerce, I'd ask you to communicate with me as much as you can, so I know what the answers are as best as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. It was nice to see that program encompass more than just 1 or 2 technologies. It was, the HVAC industry and insulation and lighting upgrades and so on. So happy to see that. And I think with that, we're, 6 minutes ahead of schedule. So on behalf of the Medicine Hat District Chamber, all of our board of directors and all of Lisa and her staff, thank you very much. We sincerely appreciate all of our representatives taking the time out of their busy schedules to connect with us, especially on this platform. This is kind of the new norm. Also like to extend our thanks to local restaurants and hoping that I didn't see too many people eating lunch today while we were presenting, but maybe a French fry or a sandwich off to the side. So just a reminder to support the local hospitality industry. It's a crucial part of our little community here. We'd also like to acknowledge the support of those members who have chosen to invest with the Chamber as our community builders. We're truly grateful for their support and all of our members, and we're always working to ensure that we create value through our membership and our benefits. If you are interested in learning more about your investment opportunities with the Chamber, I would offer Chantel. She's wonderful. She'll get you into the package that is best suited for your business. She can be reached at membership@medicinehatchamber.com. She's amazing. On a side note, we'll also be sharing the recording of this event on our YouTube channel. for those that would like to review the information presented by all of our guests today. And it will also be rebroadcast on Shaw. So please check your local listings for airtimes. And that's it in a nutshell. This concludes our leadership luncheon. Just a reminder that we've got our AGM, which will be taking place a week from today, Thursday the 19th, and it's going to be virtual. So we look forward to seeing everybody chiming in. We look forward to bringing you our report for the year in review and providing a look forward for 2021. And if you would like to register, you can find more information on our website. And once again, thank you everybody for joining us today. Great job by everybody, and nice to see we had, we were at 60 people here, so appreciate that. And everybody have a great, wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully we can get a little sunshine and melt some of this snow. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.